I first explored Kane Lake in early September of 2013, but I took only a few photographs on that excursion, and the lighting was poor in some of them, so I didn't think they warranted a slideshow-type video. Kane Lake itself, however, definitely warrants videographic recognition, and so I had been meaning for some time to return and graphically document my expedition. Thus it was that on the 29th day of June, in the year of our Lord 2019, accompanied by my wife and armed with a digital camcorder, I saddled my Ford Ranger and set out for the Kane Lake trailhead. We took to the road just as the first light of dawn was painting the eastern horizon with crimson banners of cloud, and by mid-morning we were headed up the Trail Creek Road toward the Pioneer Mountains. Presently, I turned off onto a two-track road leading to the trailhead. Even from the turnoff, snow-clad peaks could be seen towering above the landscape. After parking at the trailhead, we started up the trail. The trail to Kane Lake starts out as a pretty clear and well-developed trail, but gets progressively less developed and less clear the further in you go. However, we had gone only a small fraction of a mile when we discovered that a three-log bridge over a tributary stream that I had crossed on my previous visit had since fallen into disrepair. And yet, despite two of the three logs being broken in two, we managed to cross it without getting our feet wet. A little further on, the bridge across the main stream remained intact. After crossing the main stream, the trail merges with an old road that has long since been closed to motor vehicles. Beyond that point, there are no more man-made bridges, although an old log fallen across a stream makes a pretty good bridge. Soon the trail narrows from an abandoned two-track road to a single-lane footpath. When visible through the trees, snow-clad mountains still tower over the landscape up ahead. The trail alternately follows the stream in the bottom of the canyon and ascends the eastern wall of the canyon to get around obstacles or distribute the elevation gain more uniformly, all the while ascending towards the mountains. As the ground becomes rockier at higher elevations, the trail becomes less distinct. Soon we began to encounter patches of lingering snow. Eventually, the trail vanishes entirely beneath a jumble of talus. A little ways beyond the end of the trail, a sheer rampart of rock cuts across the entire breadth of the canyon. There are only two breaches in the rampart. One, through which the creek emanates, is rendered impassable by its torrent of foaming whitewater. The other, off to the left, can be ascended without undue difficulty, and thus affords access to the top of the rampart. Kane Lake lies just a few hundred yards beyond the rampart. At its lower end, we found it swollen to its very brim by runoff from melting snow, which formed numerous waterfalls over cliffs that surround the western side of the lake. Late June is only the very beginning of spring at this elevation, but wildflowers already abounded on the patches of ground from which the snows of winter had recently released their icy grip, and at the margin of the lake, pussy willows were also beginning to appear. Naturally, upon arriving at the lake, I got out my fly rod and tried fishing. Fishing was not particularly good, and my efforts were hampered somewhat by a stiff breeze that gusted down off the snowfields. But I did manage to catch and release a couple of small cutthroat trout. In a shallow, sheltered cove near the inlet of the lake, I saw more and larger trout in the water, but these seemed uninterested in feeding despite the variety of dry flies, nymphs, and streamers that I offered them. Around mid-afternoon, we bade farewell to Kane Lake and returned the way we had come, half walking, half sliding down the snowfields and descending the trail to where we had parked my truck. It was already evening by the time we reached the trailhead, so we drove only a little ways down the road before stopping to build a fire and roast burritos in the embers for our dinner, whereafter we returned home without incident.